spending £6 million a day on housing people in hotels because there's a huge backlog in the asylum system. The system is chaotic, it's being badly run. And what the government should be doing is focusing on an efficient, fair and effective asylum system, not bringing forward draconian measures set out in this bill.
Well, joining us now is Enver Solomon, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the Refugee Council. Enver, welcome.
Hi, good afternoon.
So what are your concerns about this bill, particularly around these new powers in terms of overruling some judges' decisions?
Well, our main concern is what this bill is doing is slamming our door in the face of refugees, people who are fleeing countries such as Afghanistan, where the Taliban are seeking to persecute and oppress lots of people, particularly women and girls, fleeing places from countries such as Sudan. And we know what's happening in Sudan today. British nationals are being evacuated from Sudan. If you're a refugee fleeing Sudan and you came to the UK under this bill, you would be locked up and then you would be deported. We think that goes against international conventions and doesn't treat people with the compassion and humanity that governments have always sought to do when refugees have come to this country looking for safety, looking for sanctuary.
Now, I mean, many people will support what you say, but a lot of people take a different view. I mean, we've heard this line that, people are fed up with, London lawyers and Strasbourg judges getting in the way of what a lot of people see as a sensible migration policy. A lot of people see this as part of a post-Brexit Britain where we can take back control. I mean, do you have any kind of understanding of that frustration from that side of the argument?
I do understand it. I completely understand it. And I recognize that people want our borders to be controlled. They want to see and know that our borders are operated effectively. But I think they also want us to show fairness to those that come here having fled countries like Sudan, like Syria, of course, where there's a civil war and people are fleeing bombs and bullets. They want to know that if you're a victim of trafficking, if you've been enslaved as a woman or as a child, and if you come here seeking safety, that you're given a fair hearing. And that means that you're allowed to apply for asylum. We assess your case and we allow fairness, we allow that to take place, and we allow people to stay here if they are found to be refugees. And that's what we've always done. And I think people understand that.
And, Enver, I suppose some of my listeners might think, is your stance, the Refugee Council, that you just want everybody to stay, or do you concede that some people don't have a right to be here and to control borders? Some people will have to be removed.
We absolutely concede and recognise that. And we say very clearly that if people aren't found to be refugees, if they don't reach the threshold that is known in law as having a well-founded fear of persecution, then of course they shouldn't be accepted into the UK as refugees, and work should be done with them to return them in a dignified way to the country they've come from or to a country that they want to be returned to. But the government isn't seeking to do that, and it's seeking really to behave like countries such as Russia and Belarus, which turn their backs on international treaties, don't seek to uphold international principles of human rights and fairness and compassion, and seek to operate in a way which I think again goes against what the majority of the British people stand for and what this country has always sought to stand up for, and the values that this country has always held dear.
Now, this government does have a majority, and so there's, I mean, I know it will probably have a difficult time getting through the Lords, but, with the majority, there is a good chance that this bill will make it to the statute books. What do you think will happen then?
Well, I'm afraid, Aisha, I fear that there will be further chaos, disorder, and a gross waste of taxpayers' money. Our analysis at the Refugee Council shows that in the first 3 years of this legislation, there could be up to 190,000 people who are either facing imprisonment in detention, immigration detention, or are facing having to be accommodated by the government at huge cost, or potentially facing destitution. That's because the government will say to these people, we're not going to determine whether you're a refugee or not. we're either going to lock you up or hold you in some kind of accommodation. They won't be able to return them to any countries because we don't have return agreements. And at huge cost to the taxpayer, there will be a system of utter chaos with tens of thousands locked up or, as I say, in accommodation and potentially disappearing into the margins of our society. And we know from conversations with senior officials in the Home Office that they share those concerns privately too. So I think this bill is simply going to result in yet more millions of pounds. Already, remember, we're spending £6 million a day on housing people in hotels because there's a huge backlog in the asylum system. The system is chaotic, it's being
Okay.
badly run. And what the government should be doing is focusing on an efficient, fair, and effective asylum system, not bringing forward draconian measures set out in this bill.
Well, listen, it was really interesting to get your perspective. Thanks very much for your time this afternoon. That's Enver Solomon, who is the CEO of the Refugee Council.